Everybody, welcome to this week's edition of the BC Zoom Room, brought to you by the Boston College CSUN Career Coaching Team. Today we have Terence To with us, a BC graduate, 2009, current sales director at Excalibur out of New York City. And a little bit about Terence: he's a sales director, an experienced merchandiser with retail buying background, skilled in fabric and trim sourcing, trend forecasting, garment model development, assortment planning, and financial analysis. He has a unique blend of passion for the product and savviness with the numbers. He possesses keen eye for details, as well as a thorough understanding of today's customer and the marketplace. A firm believer that the present retail landscape is an intersection between fashion and analytics, and one part art, one part science, both of which are equally important. Terence, my BC brother, how are you?
Good. How are you, Drew?
I'm doing well. How is it in New York? You guys are getting pretty locked down right now with COVID. How are you doing out there? Healthy? Family, friends?
Yeah, healthy. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But yeah, it's a challenging time right now in New York and in the retail industry. But we'll get through it.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit, just before we get into your background. So what's kind of challenging? What kind of challenges do you see with the retail landscape? Obviously, with working from home, consumers aren't buying or out in stores. What are you guys seeing and forecasting into the future?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is all of the uncertainty. We're on the kind of more corporate side, we're all working from home, but on the brick and mortar side, most retailers are closed right now and will be for the foreseeable future. So I think everyone is most concerned with, in the greater picture, how long this is all going to last before stores will be able to reopen. And then obviously after that, when people will feel comfortable going out and shopping again. So that's really the biggest question mark. A lot of our customers, we're a wholesaler, so we sell to a lot of department stores, and most of which have canceled their orders for the next few months and have also had to, unfortunately, furlough a lot of their employees, have had to extend their dating, which means we get paid 2 months later than we normally would have. So that's created a lot of different challenges that we're trying to deal with right now.
So we'll get back into that later on, but Terence, we're going to be targeting a lot of our sophomores, juniors, and seniors where there's a lot of uncertainty in the internship and full-time job market. A lot of our companies have started to push out internships or rescind full-time offers. And so, here, I would love to hear a little bit more about your career journey, kind of how you got to Excalibur, kind of the path you took. And when you came out of school, any kind of thoughts, fears that you did have?
Sure, Drew. Well, as you mentioned, I graduated in 2009 when, there was obviously similar crisis, not quite on this scale, but it was very difficult job market trying to navigate. And so at the time, I had kind of narrowed down my career path choices, and I sort of knew that I wanted to get into retail. And I was fortunate in that I had two primary targets at the time that I was looking at. I was looking at Macy's and then TJX, which is based in Framingham, just not too far from BC. So long story short, when I was in my senior year, I'd gone through interview processes with both of them. They both have really well-respected training programs to go into retail buying. And I loved both companies. I loved both programs. And so I was really trying to figure out geographically where I wanted to be after graduation. And Macy's is based out of New York, and then TJX in Framingham. And so I had offers from both of them, but then the recession hit, and that kind of all went away, which was it was tough, and I ended up having to restart my job search from scratch a couple months before graduation, which I know, as you mentioned, is a situation that a lot of current students, both for internships and for full-time opportunities, are facing as well. So kind of had to start over, and I was lucky that a conversation I had with Dean Boynton at the senior award ceremony. He asked me, what my plans were. I kind of walked him through what had happened with my offers, and through that conversation, I got lucky. He had some contacts in the retail industry and was willing to help. So he ended up putting me in touch with Ron Sargent, who at the time was the CEO of Staples. So he was very kind to offer me, a half-hour meeting at their headquarters. And so I met with him, explained to him kind of everything that had happened with my job search and what I was looking for. He understood that at that time my heart had kind of been set on being in New York City. So he said, ironically, Staples' headquarters is right next to TJX's, also in Framingham. So he said, all of our operations are kind of based here. So, if you're looking to be in New York, unfortunately, I don't have anything that could help you there, but let me see if I could put you in touch with some people that could help. Gave me a few contacts. I reached out to them, and eventually I landed a job at Party City, which was where I had my first buying job, started my career there. And it was a great experience. I was there for about 7 months. Started in the Halloween department, which was a lot of fun, and was a big piece of Party City's total business. So it was a great place to start my career because I had the opportunity to get a lot of exposure to the senior management of the company. But I kind of always knew that in my heart, I wanted to be at Macy's. And so while they had this hiring freeze on, because of the recession, I kept in touch with the recruiter. Every few weeks would check in, and they did the same. And then fast forward to December, after the year I graduated, they reached out and said, "Hey, look, things are looking a little better with the economy. We're looking to start hiring again. Are you still interested? Would you like to be part of that process now that we're looking to hire again?" And I said yes, went through the whole process again. And then a few months later, I ended up in the job that I had been hoping to get coming out of graduation. So in the end, it took longer than, the original plan was, but I was lucky that I ended up getting there just a little later.
After you had that Macy's job and, you kind of hustled to get there, what are you doing now? Can you tell students a little bit more about your current role?
Sure. So my first area in Macy's after I graduated from the training program for buying there was in tailored clothing, so suits. And suits was something that I didn't really know anything about coming out of college. I got one black solid suit for all my interviews, and that's the only suit I ever had. And but as I worked in that area at Macy's, I developed a passion for it. And so in particular, I was looking to transition into a merchandising and product development role in tailored clothing. So one of my contacts from working at Macy's, she was actually one of my vendors. She put me in touch with someone she had worked for earlier in her career, who then became my boss at my next job. And he's also a BC alum. So that was kind of cool. And that really then led to my current job, which is in a third capacity in sales on the wholesale side with Excalibur. Similarly, a contact that I had met at Macy's and then continued a relationship with in that second job, in that product development job. She knew a friend. That friend is now my current boss. She said, he's looking to bring someone on with your type of experience. I think you should meet him. At the time, I wasn't necessarily looking to make a change. I was happy in what I was doing, but I figured, okay, if this person who knows me pretty well is recommending that I meet with someone, it can't hurt to take the meeting. It's a half hour, and if it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't, no harm done. So I took the meeting, and then ended up being blown away by the conversation that I had with my now current boss. And with that half-hour meeting, it really sold me that it was an opportunity I should pursue. So in my current role, I handle a portion of our company's business. So I have a number of accounts that I'm responsible for, of which Macy's is one of them. So that kind of came back full circle, and I'm currently working with some people that I worked with when I was at Macy's, which is really, really cool. And so we sell both sportswear and dress furnishing, so dress shirts, neckwear, to our retailer partners. And so we developed the product. We are a fully vertical company, so we have our own fabric mill, our own garment manufacturing, and then so we produce the product, bring it over from overseas to the U.S., and then distribute it to our various retailers.
Lots of great advice there, Terence. And I think what stands out to me most is, once you're inside these companies, the work doesn't stop. It just begins. And how you've been successful, obviously you've done the work, you've put in your time, but then you've recognized that to climb inside these corporations, right? You need to have a network, and you need to leverage others. And one conversation can lead to another opportunity. And now you come full circle, and you're working for Excalibur, and then you get to interact with people at Macy's. So associates you had, colleagues you had.
A really important thing for students to keep in mind is it's a really small world out there. And you hear that all the time, and it's cliche, but it is so true. And over the course of my career, I've been surprised time and time again when someone who I interacted with, 2 or 3 roles ago, several years ago, ends up popping up. And it's happened a lot. Really important. All of your relationships are really important. The impression that you make on people lasts a long time, and it will help you not only in your current role, but down the road as well. So I think that that's something that is really, really important to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Never burn a bridge, because you never know when you may need to cross that bridge again, or there might be an opportunity to. And this is a living example. So I think that's awesome. Could you give us some you talked a little bit about the industry uncertainty, but how is Excalibur preparing for kind of this downturn in the industry, and kind of what conversations are you guys having?
Well, we're working on a couple things. We are fortunate in the sense that since we are fully vertical, we control every portion of our supply chain. We're focusing on trying to develop our direct-to-consumer businesses, our e-commerce businesses. Obviously, with most brick-and-mortar stores closed, again, for at least probably the next month or two, and who knows, maybe longer. People are having to shift to, even more so than they were before, to shopping online. We're also exploring new product categories that potentially we may go into to sort of supplement what we currently do.
I want to focus on the emphasis on online e-commerce. For students looking for a job right now, maybe they want to get into retail, where do you see opportunity, even in this downturn, that they could kind of leverage their skills learned at BC to come into a company? Is it some operational e-commerce role, or what do you see?
I think the biggest thing is thinking about where it's a term that we use a lot in retail, where the white space is. So looking at it through the lens of the customer and saying to yourself, okay, this is what everyone else already does. What isn't being done? Or is there something that could be done better? And then trying to figure out a way to do that. So I think that everyone, if you're fortunate enough to go to BC, you should be able to have the tools to survey what is out there and kind of figure out where that white space is and how you might be able to service a need that currently isn't being fulfilled.
Love it. Love it. So look at a company, look at their value chain and understand where it could be improved or where they could get into a new opportunity and pitch that to the company and you'll find opportunity there. Great. Terence, as we wind down here, talk to me just a little bit about career advice or kind of actionable tips that our students at BC can take away from this. So can you give me up to three takeaways that students have from your story that they can apply in their job search, their internship search, especially during these times?
Sure. So I think the number one thing is, with everything that's going on right now, unfortunately, there's a lot of negative news out there, and there's a lots of variables that are out of your control. But the one thing that you can always control is your attitude. And I think in the face of adversity, the most important thing, as hard as it is sometimes, is to stay positive, because it will have a domino effect on so many aspects of not only your job search, but your life. One of the other things that we touched on a bit before is develop your network. And that was a concept that I think you hear that word, and at least when I look back to when I was a junior, senior in college, it's not that you don't know the term, but it takes time for you to get a full understanding of what that means. And like we've talked about, you never know when you're going to need your network. And the best time to start developing relationships is when you don't need something, because it's really hard to go to someone who you haven't talked to very much and say, oh, I need help, just right off the bat. It's a lot easier if you've spent the time to develop that relationship before you needed anything, because people generally are going to be a lot more willing and able to help you if you've spent the time to develop that relationship with them. And BC is a great place to start that. When you're there, obviously you have a lot of relationships with your classmates, with the faculty, and then also we're really, really lucky to have a great alumni network. So one of the things that I did at that time when I had to restart my job search was I reached out to alumni, and not every single person is going to be able to help you, but there are a lot of people who are willing, and you never know who it is that will be the person that, again, makes the right introduction for you or gives you the right piece of advice. So really try and talk to as many people as you can. Drew, you also mentioned one other thing before in terms of staying informed. And I think that's also a really important key. Knowledge is power. So whatever your industry is that you're interested in, sign up for newsletters, ask questions, stay up to date on what's going on in that field, because similar to the network thing, you never know when something that you hear or read somewhere will be helpful to you. And then the last thing is be open-minded. It's important to have a plan, but especially when times are kind of crazy like they are right now, it's perhaps even more important to be flexible about adjusting that plan as things change.
What really stood out to me there was point 2, when Terence said, develop your relationships when you don't need something. So develop them now in school and your first few years out of school when you're just beginning to build. So Terence, all awesome advice. Really appreciate your insights and time. And before we kick you off this podcast, I think we have to do the once an Eagle, always an Eagle random question here. So during your time here, you have some wonderful professors, wonderful administrative staff. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to, anybody you remember from your time at BC that really made it memorable?
Yeah, there's a couple. So two in CSOM. One is Professor Joy Field. So I was an ops major, and I took several classes with her, and her courses really helped me solidify my interest in ops, which eventually led me to retail. So her, Professor Ed Taylor in accounting, he was very charismatic. He made accounting, which is an area that I didn't necessarily have a lot of interest in, and I think some people can find to be boring. He really found a way to make it interesting. So him. And then the last one would be Professor Carrie Cronin in the philosophy department. I took perspectives with her freshman year, and then vertices with her my junior year. And she was great. She really knew how to connect with students. And again, I think one of her biggest strengths was being able to explain things in a way that was very easy to understand. So those would be kind of three faculty members that I have very fond memories of.
Make sure to share this with them. Terence, really appreciate you coming on. I know the students will too. BC community thanks you, and we look forward for your future success in navigating this crazy time we're in. Terence, you have a good one.
Thanks a lot, Drew.